Hey guys, welcome back to Based MMA. We have a couple of fight announcements. The UFC just announced Michael Venom Page versus Ian Garry for UFC 303. Carlos Ulberg is stepping in on short notice for Khalil Roundtree and will be facing Jamal Hill at UFC 303. The UFC also announced that Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler will be having a press conference on June 3rd in Ireland. So the promo for UFC 303 has just begun. Let's talk about it. So I'm going to start off with the big one. So the first big fight announcement is Ian Machado Garry versus Michael Venom Page. And just like we knew, Colby Duckington ducked the fight with Ian Garry. And supposedly he's dealing with an injury. So if Colby can come out and actually prove that he's still dealing with an injury, then maybe some MMA fans will still forgive him. But me personally, guys, I'm done with Colby Covington. I don't want to hear about this guy. I don't care about him. I don't care who he fights next. I respect Ian Garry because Ian Garry actually wanted to be active. He wanted to be on the Conor McGregor card. And for him to fight Michael Venom Page, who's only ranked number 13, as much as we'd like to shit on Ian Garry for everything outside the cage, we have to give Ian Garry his respect for taking this fight against Michael Venom Page, who stylistically, man, it's a tough fight, man. I think this is going to be a very, very tricky fight to predict, man, because Michael Venom Page, even though he's a little bit older now in his career, he's very elusive. He has a fast right hand. He has that side movement. His blitz are amazing. Ian Garry, his last fight against Jeff Neal wasn't too impressive. I think Ian Garry has amazing leg kicks, amazing head kicks, good movement. He doesn't have like the best output in my opinion. And I also think Ian Garry's hands, his boxing leaves a lot to be desired. He doesn't have like crazy power, which is why I'm having a little bit of a hard time predicting who's going to win this fight. I think right now, I think I have to go with Michael Venom Page. I think Michael Venom Page's movement's going to be a little bit too much. Ian Garry, he's typically the better striker in his matchups. Like he was a better striker than Jeff Neal. And Jeff Neal was still able to make that fight very competitive. We saw what Wonderboy was able to do to Jeff Neal, and Ian Garry wasn't able to do the same. So I think that Ian Garry's defense is also not as good. Now, Michael Venom Page, he is a little bit older now. He keeps his hands very low. So maybe Ian Garry could catch him with a head kick. He is the younger fighter going into this fight. I think this fight is a 50-50, guys. I think this fight is a very, very tricky matchup. We got two lengthy, rangy strikers. This might be a boring fight. I hope it's not. I hope Michael Venom Page makes it a little bit interesting because Ian Garry, I'm going to be honest, guys. Ian Garry, even though he's a striker, his fights are kind of a snoozy, man. His fight against Neil Magny wasn't too impressive. His fight against Jeff Neal wasn't all that impressive. His last good win, I guess, was over Daniel Rodriguez. But I mean, Daniel Rodriguez isn't all that. So right now, guys, I have to go with Michael Venom Page to win this fight. I am a little bit worried because he is a little bit older. He keeps his hands very low, but I just think he's faster than Ian Garry. I think he's going to throw better leg kicks. I think his right hand's going to be money. Ian Garry has shown that he doesn't have the best defense, but he is the younger fighter, man. He is the younger fighter. And like I said, I had to respect Ian Garry for taking this fight when, let's be honest, this fight doesn't really make a lot of sense for Ian Garry when he should be looking to the top. The fight with Colby Covington was a fight that made sense for Ian Garry, and now he's fighting Michael Venom Page at UFC 303. Maybe the fact that it's a little bit short notice for Michael Venom Page. I mean, the card is about a month away, I want to say. Yeah, about a month away. Maybe that helps out Ian Garry here. But I have to go with Michael Venom Page, guys. I just think stylistically, it's a very weird fight. It's definitely a very weird fight because these guys both have, good range management, very fast, good leg kicks. It's a striker versus striker kind of matchup. And I think that Michael Venom Page is the better striker here. The only thing that concerns me is that he is the older fighter. I believe he's 35, 36 years old. Ian Garry is still very young. I just haven't been too impressed with Ian Garry in his last couple of fights. So I'm going to go with Michael Venom Page to win this fight. Right now, obviously, this is my early prediction. I might change my mind by the time we get to June 20th, whenever I make my prediction video for UFC 303. But right now, as much as I respect Ian Garry for taking the matchup, I think that Michael Venom Page is kind of a tricky matchup. And also the fact that the fight is 3 rounds. I mean, I know we haven't seen Ian Garry in 5 rounds. I think Ian Garry would probably have better cardio over 5 rounds. I didn't like how he fought Jeff Neal. I guess. I mean, I don't know. I think Michael Venom Page might school him on the feet if I'm being honest. So the next fight announcement was Carlos Ulberg fighting Jamal Hill for UFC 303. He's stepping in for Khalil Roundtree. And I'm going to be honest, I think this is a more exciting fight for me as a MMA fan. I think for the casual viewer, Carlos Ulberg and Khalil Roundtree, I mean, it's not going to make a big buzz. I think most of us wanted Yuri Prohaska to fight Jamal Hill. It is what it is, man. But I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm a fan of Jamal Hill. I think this is a bad matchup. I think this is a really bad matchup for Jamal Hill because Carlos Ulberg has a fast left hook. He has very fast hands. He's also very tall. He's very explosive. He's very young. He's on a good win streak. He's coming off that first round knockout over Alonso Menenfield, which I know that part of that was because Alonso Menenfield fought like a complete moron and rushed Carlos Ulberg and got knocked out. But man, this is a tough fight as well, man, because Jamal Hill's coming off a knockout loss to Alex Pereira, and then you're fighting Carlos Ulberg, who has an amazing fast left hook. I just think that's kind of bad for Jamal Hill, if I'm being honest. I mean, Jamal Hill is definitely the more experienced fighter. I mean, probably not by much. I mean, Jamal Hill's best wins over Glover Teixeira, Johnny Walker, Thiago Santos. And Carlos Ulberg is getting a big step up, but I mean, he has the momentum on his side. He is the younger fighter here as well. I don't know, man. I mean, Jamal Hill could be tricky because he fought Southpaw, but Carlos Ulberg, I mean, the fact also that he trains with Israel Adesanya, who just gave tips to Jamal Hill on beating Pereira, I mean, that's definitely going to be relevant here. You think they're going to help Carlos Ulberg prepare for Jamal Hill, and then Jamal Hill is going to be going into that fight not at his most confident, right? Because he has something to prove. And in that first round, Jamal Hill is going to have the jitters. And I could just see Carlos Ulberg landing a left hook and knocking out Jamal Hill. I think it's a very tricky matchup. I think as the fight goes on, I could see Jamal getting his confidence and then breaking down Carlos Ulberg. But I think early on, Ulberg is going to be very dangerous in this matchup. He has a lot of first round knockouts. I just don't like this short notice matchup for Jamal Hill, man. I don't like it. I was picking Jamal Hill to beat Khalil Roundtree, if I'm being honest. But I think Carlos Ulberg, the fact that he's the same height, similar, I guess, stature, a little bit more build. I think he's going to be the faster striker. Maybe Jamal Hill is a little bit more crisp, a little bit more technical in a sense. But I think Ulberg is a little bit faster. And then Jamal Hill is going to be going into this fight coming off a knockout loss. I think right now my early prediction for this fight, guys, has to be Carlos Ulberg to win this fight by a knockout. I just don't like this fight being short notice for Jamal Hill coming off that Pereira fight. I mean, I could see maybe him winning. I just don't know how his chin is going to be. And Carlos Ulberg is very explosive. He's very good at moving with his back foot and then throwing that left hand that has knocked out a lot of his opponents. So I think this is a very tricky matchup. I hope Jamal Hill knocks him out, man. I want to see Jamal Hill stay at the top of the light heavyweight division. I think he's a very interesting character. I think he really hypes up his fights. But I just think coming off that Pereira fight, fighting Ulberg, I just don't think it's a good idea. Now, the final piece of news was that Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler will have a press conference for UFC 303 back in Ireland on June 3rd. And I love this, guys. This is vintage UFC. We're back. I'm glad that they're actually marketing UFC 303. And the fact also that Conor McGregor this last week, he was on a stream talking a lot of shit about Topuria, about Kamaru Usman. I'm glad that old Conor McGregor is back and he's going to be shit talking Michael Chandler, and I want to see it. I'm glad that they're going to have more than one press conference because they really want to build this fight, man, because Conor, as much as he's a big superstar, he's coming off a leg injury and he's coming off, 2 losses to Dustin Poirier. So I don't think Conor McGregor's stock is as high as it could be. So I think the UFC is going to need to really build up this fight. I think they're going to need to host a couple of press conferences to really build this matchup between McGregor and Michael Chandler, because we've been waiting for it for so long that almost like fans, we've kind of like, we're not as excited as we should be. We should be super excited that Conor's back, that he has this explosive, this fight is probably going to be only 1 round or 2 rounds against Michael Chandler, who's also one of the most exciting fighters we currently have in the UFC. So the UFC needs to do a good job of really selling this fight. So I'm really happy that the UFC is actually learning. This is something that I've been criticizing the UFC for a very, very long time. I told you guys in my last video about UFC 303 that I felt like the UFC was kind of dropping the ball when it came to marketing this fight. And it seems like they heard what I was saying, man. It seems like they listened to Based MMA And on June 3rd, they're going to have a press conference. That's awesome, man. That's really going to build up the fight. I'm glad. I'm going to be very excited to see what Conor says to Chandler. I feel like Chandler is going to be a little bit more evil now. I think he's going to drop the fake nice guy act. And he's going to go back with Conor McGregor saying, look, bro, you're coming off a leg injury. I'm going to knock you out. I'm actually disciplined. You're out here drinking, being on cocaine. I hope that Chandler actually talks some shit. We know Conor's going to talk some shit. So I really hope this helps build up the fight. But man, this news is amazing. I'm glad that the UFC is going to do this. I want to know what you guys think. Are you guys happy that Conor and Chandler are going to have a press conference before actually fight week, that they're going to have a press conference back in Ireland to really build Conor McGregor? Are you happy about Michael Venom Page versus Ian Garry? I think it's kind of a bad matchup for Ian Garry. And then also Carlos Ulberg is going to be facing Jamal Hill, which I don't think is the best fight that Jamal Hill could have taken at this point in his career right now, especially coming off that Pereira loss where he got knocked out in the first round. We don't know how his durability is going to be. We know that in that first round, he's probably going to have the jitters and be very nervous. So this is all the fight news. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.